Hi, everyone, and welcome to Homegrown the Live Show, where we talk all about growing food so we can live a little bit more of a sustainable lifestyle. And today's episode, we're talking about all the things that are happening in May, what plants to sow, what pruning to do, a little bit about succession planting. So that is all that's happening today. I hope Tama makes an entrance. He probably will. My dog Tama likes to make an entrance in all of these episodes, so I'm sure today will be no different. The sun is shining right into my kitchen. I always set this up and I think that the lighting is perfect, and then the sun starts setting. So it's definitely changing as we head in towards winter. So that is another thing. What is happening in May is actually that it's autumn here in Australia, whereas a lot of other people around the world will be in a different season. So keep this one somewhere where you can refer to it for autumn, because this is going to be a little bit of a something that you can refer back to with all the things to plant. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a garden update as well, and some of the projects that I'm working on, because I feel like I have a lot of projects on the go, which is a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. I haven't actually done a lot of projects in I feel like the last year, I haven't done a lot of projects. So even though it seems like a lot going on now, it's probably just, I haven't been doing a lot. So what I like to do with my projects in the garden is to try and complete them before I start the next one. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not actually physically starting all of these projects. I'm starting one at a time. But what I like to do is at least have ideas for the projects that I want to work on, and then I can keep an eye out on things. And because I try to do everything secondhand and low cost or free where possible. I mean, that's amazing if you can do things for free, but as low cost as possible. Thrifty gardening, that's what I think I would call it, thrifty gardening. But the best way to do that is to at least have an idea of what you're working on, because then you can know what to look out for, and when things pop up, you know exactly what you need. So that is what I'm doing, and I'm going to share a few of those projects, things that I've got on the go, or just at least in the back of my mind, things that I'm keeping an eye out for. So you know what is coming up in the next 6 months, because there's a few things happening. I'm also going to share a plant of the week, like every week, just so that you can, get to know a little bit more about different plants. And by no means does this mean you need to plant all of these plant of the weeks, please. I get so many people being like, I'm planting this, which is amazing. But you don't have to plant all of them. I just wanted to bring awareness to more edible plants, because I love learning about different edible plants. So I would like to show you more about them as well, especially ones that I've got growing in my garden that I know a little bit more about. And we are going to talk about succession planting and the different ways and types of succession planting, because there are a whole lot of different ways to do succession planting. And I know that's something that a lot of people get really stuck on. How do I succession plant? What are the rules? What do I do? And so I'm going to show you some different ways to do it, some really easy ways to do it, and what I like to do in the garden for succession planting. Then I'm going to share some of my seeds that I'm sowing. So you may need to get a pen and paper if you want to write these down, because I don't have them up on the screen. So, by all means, you've got time to grab a pen and paper to write down some of these seeds or plants that I'm planting this month or in autumn. And then I'll also go through at the end some of the pruning that I'm doing at the moment, other jobs around the garden. There's a few things happening in autumn, and so I'm going to share those with you as well. Then, of course, we'll jump into a Q&A. So if you've got any questions and you are watching this live, make sure you jump in the chat, say hi. I can see some familiar faces in there, which I love to see every week. It really does make my day to see you guys show up every week and say hi in the live chat. But if you do have any questions, pop a Q in front of them and we'll jump into those at the end of the episode. All right, so garden update projects. What's happening? So some of you may already know this, but I am starting a pond project. So I have acquired the pond, and I feel like the universe wanted me to have a pond. So I talked about a pond, I started with a bird bath. I wanted to add a bird bath outside of my office window so I can, because there's lots of birds out there. So I was like, if I can get a bird bath, that's going to be great for the bees and the birds, especially in summer. I can give them some water, and I can also watch them and get very distracted from my office. But that quickly, like once I got on Pinterest, if you guys have been on Pinterest, you know what I mean, spiraled into pond. And I was like, I need a pond because then I can get pond plants, and I can have like water lilies out the window, and I can have edible plants that grow in the pond. So that's what happened. And honestly, like, I want to say the next day I was on Marketplace. I just went for a walk with the dog, and a pond popped up for free. So I ended up going to pick up the pond, and me being me, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but like, I just kind of roughly was like, the guy gave me the dimensions of the pond, and I did actually get the measuring tape out and measured I've got like a Mazda hatchback. But so much can fit in those things, honestly. So I was like measuring it. I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. It's fine. We'll go. So my partner said to me, do you want to take the truck? And I was like, no, I've measured it. It's fine. And he was going to be doing some maintenance on the truck, so it wasn't going to be available at all the rest of the weekend. I was like, no, it's fine. I'll take my car. And it hasn't failed me yet. And I got it took me maybe 25 minutes to get there, and I quickly realized the Mazda wasn't going to cut it. The pond was a little bit too big for the boot, and I couldn't fit it in, which was fine because he just, he said to me I could pick it up another day, so I was like, I'll arrange that. But he was so generous and ended up giving me a bunch of different pots, some large pots, and some pond plants as well. So he had bought a property and had lots of ponds, and he wanted to get rid of them. And I was, the opposite, wanting to get the ponds. So I did come home with, I think it was 5 pots, like large ceramic pots. Some of them are quite low and round that were in the pond that I got. So those will be really handy. I'll be able to pop those straight back into the pond. But yeah, so that was amazing. And another thrifty find, I got a pond and 5 pots and some plants for free. And now I need to make it happen. So that is a project that's physically happening this month. I am actually going to put the pond in. I'm installing the pond. I'm making that happen. But there's a couple other projects that I have in the back of my mind that I'm still keeping an eye on stuff for. And I actually have had those projects on the go for a lot longer, but it's just more so finding the right products. And one of those things is, I don't know if you guys have seen out the front of my house, the raised garden beds, which are outside my office window as well. They have shade cloth over them. So I have structures over my raised garden beds because they get so hot in summer. So they've got, I think it's like, so there's one pole in each corner of the raised garden bed, and there's a whole frame around it that I can install shade cloth on, which has been great. It was a great temporary way to get instant shade over my raised garden beds, especially over summer. And that's been 2 seasons now, 2 summers I've had them. And I don't love them. There's so many poles, and I'm really creative in terms of, I love taking photos and videos, and it just kind of frustrates me that there's a million poles in the way, and you can't just see one garden. You can't see all garden beds at once. It just gets very busy. So my main thing that I was going to do, I was doing this originally, was to set up some sort of permanent, like, living shade, so that I could grow something to provide shade in summer, but then also allow the sun in winter. So something that was deciduous that I could grow over those raised garden beds to, be living shade. So that has been a project that has been in the back of my mind for a while, and we've been trying to source or look out for some large posts that we can build an arbor, like a really nice arbor that's we can grow, I think, grapes is what I've decided on. The sun is really frustrating me. It's coming in and out. But that is another project on the go, is we're going to be creating a grape arbor over the raised garden beds for a permanent shade structure that is living, and it's going to look hopefully a lot nicer than the shade cloth. And it's also going to give me places that I can then add extra vertical gardens in as well. So that's another project on the go. It's just trying to be patient. And I think that's the most important thing, is when you are looking to do projects in the garden, is if you can be patient and you can just come up with an idea, a design, and then keep an eye out for things rather than rushing out and buying everything brand new and from scratch, because that can be very, very costly, especially when you are someone like me that gets very inspired and needs to have projects all the time. So we've got grapevine structure, pond. I feel like there's another one. Yeah, I have a couple other ones on the go, but they're a little bit further back in terms of I haven't really even looked for stuff for them yet. So I will keep you guys updated on those, because they're going to be more, I guess, urban gardening. I want to do some things one of them is, I hope my partner's not listening to this, and I don't think he will be, but I want to put a window garden outside of this kitchen window so I can have herbs growing right out here. I feel like it will look beautiful from my kitchen, and I can just literally open the window and pick herbs. So that's another one that I've got in the back of my mind, but we'll see how that goes. So that's really what's happening in terms of projects in the garden. I feel like that's a lot, but one thing at a time. Pond, grape arbor, maybe two things at a time. And in terms of what else is happening in the garden, a little bit of a garden update. It's beautiful weather. The weather is insane at the moment. So I have been, feeling inspired by that and going outside quite a lot. My feijoa tree is dripping with fruit. Every day I'm harvesting huge baskets of fruit from my feijoas, and I am putting together a video for you guys. So there will be a video on my YouTube channel, all everything about feijoas. So if there's any questions you've got regarding feijoas, then definitely let me know, because that's got something that I'm going to be filming very shortly. I don't know, you can probably see behind me. I don't know if you can see behind me actually, but there's I've got so many feijoas. I've been having feijoas for breakfast, lunch, and dessert. So many feijoas. And what else is I've planted more seeds, more seedlings, which we're going to dive into. I'm going to let you know what seedlings I've been planting, what seeds I've been planting. So let's just dive into plant of the week. What do you think it's going to be? All right, so society garlic. Because now is actually a really good time to be planting your normal garlic. And I have been planting normal garlic, but garlic takes a long time to be ready. And if you love garlic in your cooking, then this plant is going to really give you that garlic flavor all year round. It's a perennial, and it has these beautiful pink flowers that are a lot more subtle than garlic. So they've got a really subtle garlic flavor. You can add them to your salads. You can add them on top of your meals. You can add them into stir fries. And then it's got some green, strappy leaves that look similar to, I guess, a garlic chives. They look like garlic chives. And those leaves as well have a garlic flavor. So you can add those to all of your meals as well for a really nice, it's quite robust, but it's a little bit more subtle than normal garlic. It's easy to grow. It has edible flowers. It's a perennial, and you guys know I love my perennials, which means it's just going to grow all year round. You don't have to do any big sowing, any big harvesting. It's often used as borders, so it makes a really nice low-lying, if you have got a food forest style garden, it's really something that's going to be quite low down. So having it on the borders means that it's not going to be completely overshadowed or overgrown. It has some medicinal uses. So just like garlic, it's quite good with anti-inflammatory properties as well in the cold and flu season. It can help you out there. It grows in a sort of clumping method. So it just produces more and more little bulbs in a clumping style. So you can break it up and move it throughout your garden and get lots more plants for free. So that's what I've been doing. I haven't been harvesting a whole lot of my society garlic. I've more so been like splitting it up as it grows and popping it in different areas of my garden. And because of these beautiful flowers, it's a great pollinator plant too. And we want to have as many pollinator plants as we can in the garden. So it's another one that I really love. It comes in two different color ways. They both have the same flowers. As far as I remember, both of mine have the same colored flowers. But there's a variegated one and just a normal green one. And the green kind of has like a light silvery green leaf. And then the variegated one has basically like a white outline of the leaf. And people often ask me, because I do have these in my videos often, where do you find them? I cannot find society garlic. So one thing to look for if you are wanting to purchase the society garlic is it's more so used in a cottage garden as a border. So if you go to a nursery and you're looking in the edible plants or in the herb section and you can't find society garlic, take a look in the cottage garden area, because that's probably where you'll find it. It's more so used as an ornamental in cottage gardens, but that's, a really good one to look out for. And the bees love it. And it's I took this photo an hour or two ago, so it's flowering right now when not many other things are flowering in the garden. So it's good to have some things that flower in those bridging gaps so that you can always have flowers available for the bees, for the beneficial insects, because those really are going to help our gardens thrive and, as well help keep and maintain a healthy, diverse garden with less pests and more food. So that is the plan for the week, the society garlic. Let me know if you've been growing it or if you've tried it. It's a really interesting one to grow. All right, so next up, we're going to be talking about succession planting. So this is a popular topic, and basically it's just strategic planting to get continuous or multiple harvests. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. These are a few of the ways that I do it in my garden, and I use basically all of these methods. I use a range of different methods. Some of them are very easy. You don't really have to do anything. Other things will take more thought and reminders. So the first one is delayed sowing. So you can sow seeds, now, and then you can wait and you can sow another lot of seeds a few weeks apart, and that's going to give you a staggered harvest. That's one of the hardest ones. I feel like that's one of the hardest ones because I just forget. I will sow seeds and then I move on to other things and I forget. So one of the ones I like to do is delayed planting, where I sow my seeds and I might plant half of them out into the garden, and then I might just keep a few of them back in the pots or the cells, the little, cells that you planted them in. Just keep them back a week or two before I plant them into the garden. The ones in the garden are going to take off much quicker because they've got more nutrients, more sunlight. They're going to really start to grow. And the ones in the pots will be a lot slower. So then when you go, in 2 weeks' time and or 1 week's, whatever you want to do, you can plant those out and they're naturally going to have that succession because the first ones have had an extra boost of nutrition. They've already taken off. So that means you only have to sow once at one time, and then you just plant out the seedlings at different times. So that's one I like to do. It's, pretty easy to do. Another one that you can do in terms of succession planting is plant different varieties. So, I've got a whole bunch of seeds at this point, and I've got lots of varieties of different things. So if you're talking about broccoli or cauliflower, there's different varieties that will be ready at or have different harvest times. So some might take, 40 days, some might take 60 days. And often these will be stipulated on the packet. So you can have a look at, if you've got multiple different types or packets of seeds, you can look at the harvest times and see if some are going to be ready at different times. And you can get early versions and quick growing versions and things like that. Often the smaller versions will be quicker than the full size or larger versions. So that's another way to do succession planting, is to plant different varieties that have different harvest times. And variation of sunlight. So we talked in, I think it was the last episode, about growing food in the shade, and you can use that to your advantage. So if you have different garden beds and one gets more shade than the other and you plant things at the same time, the one in the shade is probably going to grow slower. So that means you're going to naturally get some succession planting without you having to do anything. You've just planted them at the same time in different garden beds, and one is going to be ready before the other. And so that's easy to do. I love that. Chuck them in, same time, we get staggered harvests. Another one is to grow quick growing crops of similar types. So if you're talking about you want to grow greens, for example, you want some stir-fry greens or something like that, some varieties are going to grow a whole lot quicker than others. So you can plant your Asian greens. They grow so quickly. You can be starting to harvest off different leaves from that. And that way you're getting some food started while you wait for other things that are a little bit slower to grow. And you can also start harvesting off leaves from like your cauliflowers and your broccolis. They are going to take a lot longer to produce the cauliflower or the broccoli head, but you can start harvesting off some of the leaves and use those as you would greens as well. So there's a few different ways to do that, whether you plant quick growing crops or you start harvesting off the leaves of your other crops. Another one is seeds versus seedlings. So if you have some seeds and you have some seedlings, they're going to be ready at different times because seeds are going to take longer to grow than a seedling. So you can go through and plant some seedlings, get them on the go, and then go through after and plant some seeds, or the other way around. And that's going to give you a staggered harvest as well, because your seeds and your seedlings will be ready at different times. And don't feel like buying seedlings is cheating, please. We all buy seedlings, especially later in the season when we think that we're not going to have time to get things growing. It can be a good idea to buy seedlings. Just make sure you're buying your seedlings from somewhere that you know is growing healthy seeds, and you'll be fine. I grow from seedlings as well as seeds. Another thing is plant nearby. So for example, I don't know, you may have some basil. I've got basil growing in a lot of my garden beds, and basil generally will die off in winter. Sometimes, some climates you may get it to grow through, but most of the time basil is going to start finishing up soon. So now I'm starting to plant really close to my basil plants, knowing that those are going to be finishing up. I can plant some seedlings quite close by. And that way, once my basil is finished, I can just cut it off. I just cut my plants at the base. I leave the roots in the ground. So I can cut that off, and then that's going to, give that space for the other plant that I've already got on the go. So it's already, starting to grow a few inches before I'm removing the plant. The same with a lot of my climbing varieties. I'll start to plant the succession plants already before the other one's quite finished, and then I can just cut them off at the base, remove them, and give the next lot space to grow, and they're already on their way, rather than waiting till that plant is completely finished, removing it, and then planting the seeds. That's a really good way to start getting quick succession going. If you've already planted them, they're already on the go, you're just sort of waiting, you don't want to remove that plant yet, it's still producing food, it's still useful. That's another great way to do it. And that's something that I'm really doing with my basil. What else have I got? My chili plant, I'm probably going to leave. I did leave that already for one season, so it's been growing for a few years now. It still looks like it's producing more than enough, so I'm probably going to leave that for another season. We'll just see how we go. So I'm not planting too much around the chili as yet, because I am going to keep that there, but it will be cut back and it will lose most of its leaves, so I can grow like lettuces and other things, quick things around the base of it, and that should be fine. What else have we got? May gardening jobs, or should we jump into seeds? Let's jump into seeds after that. So I'm going to now share what seeds I'm sowing, what seedlings I've been sowing. So if you do have a pen and paper, maybe it's a good time to get that, because I don't have a slide on screen for that. So to start off with, I have been planting out some seedlings that I've been growing over the last few weeks, I guess months. And those seedlings are peas, beans, cabbages, some red cabbages, celery. So I have two different types of celery. I've got peppermint stick celery, which has pink stems. And then I have a red celery, which has red stems. Really interesting to grow. I love growing things with color in the garden. So I've grown them both the last few years, and the red celery is prolific. It popped up in all the cracks of my garden because I let it go to seed. So I saved some of those seeds, and now I'm planting it again. And a few other things. Those are the main seedlings, I think, because at the moment I've got a lot of things in the garden already. So I've got all my rainbow chard already in the garden. I've got all my cauliflowers in the garden. I've got broccolis in the garden. So those are sort of my main big crops that are going to take up the most space. And now that I've got those cabbages in the garden as well, those are also going to take up space. So once I have those sort of on the go, and if you wanted to, you could go and get some seedlings for those sort of things, because you can still be planting them. You can still plant your brassicas right now in the garden. So once I've got those sort of main ones in and I kind of have them situated, that's where I go in and I just start filling the gaps. And I love filling the gaps. So some of the things I fill the gaps with are beetroots. So there's lots of different types of beetroots. So I grow the golden beetroot, the white beetroot, the candy cane stripe beetroot, and a few of the red beetroots as well, because I love using the red beetroots for coloring things. Lettuce. It's funny. I always feel like I really want lettuce in summer, but it just is too hot here in Perth for lettuce in summer. Some of them will grow, but if you have shady gardens, that's where you put the lettuce in summer. But now lettuce is thriving. Like, I have a lot of lettuce. So I'm still, succession planting a few lettuces, because I have some on the go that I've been harvesting heaps from, but I have planted a whole bunch more as well. And I did have a lettuce that went to seed. I don't know if you saw that in one of my raised garden beds, and I just sprinkled the seeds in the rest of the raised garden beds. And they're all starting to pop up now at all different times. So I'm getting, a natural succession of lettuce just from me randomly sprinkling seeds over summer of that lettuce that went to seed. And that's what I love about self-sowing, or like letting things go to seed, is they pop up when the time is right. You don't have to try and time it right. They just, once they get the right amount of moisture, the right amount of, temperatures, right amount of sunlight, they just grow on their own. So where I can, I love to do that. So we've got lettuce, beetroot, turnip or parsnips. That's another one that you can really start to pop in the gaps there. And all of my root vegetables I do like to direct sow. And what else have we got? Parsley. I love parsley. I use parsley basically like I use lettuce. I pop that in all my salads. It's a really, really healthy one for you. It grows very easily, prolifically. You can pop that in a pot as well if you wanted. Marigolds are an edible flower, really good beneficials, and also really good for having, interplanted throughout your veggie garden so that you can keep some of those pests away with their strong scent. Celery, like I said, so I've planted celery seedlings that I've grown, but I'm also sprinkling a few seeds in, because that means I'll have that succession going of the celery seedlings, but also some celery seeds. Walking stick cabbage. It's a new one for me. I haven't grown that before. So I'm trying out the walking stick cabbage. I feel like I always like to try something new, and that's something that I'm trying this year. What else have I got? Radish. I like radish in all my gaps. Lots of different varieties of radish. So I've got the French breakfast radish. I've got daikon radish, which is great for pickling, and I love pickles, so I'm really looking forward to that. My absolute favorite is the watermelon radish. What other radishes do I have? Oh, it's like a fire stick or candlestick radish. That's a bright red one, really interesting one. So I've direct sown a lot of those radishes, but you guys, I've had major issues. I've had major issues, which has kind of put me off planting seeds in my pellet planters with the slaters. Like, the slaters have been eating all of my seedlings or ring barking my bean plants. I have been using collars, so all of my larger seedlings, like my cauliflowers, broccolis, rainbow chards, I planted those with collars around them, which was basically just a pot with the bottom cut off. I popped it in, and then I popped the seedling in, and so it's growing out of that, because the slaters don't seem to, okay, if you don't know what slaters are as well, they're called many different names. Slaters, woodlice, pill bugs, I think there's probably roly-polies or something. There's lots of names for them. I just call them slaters. They are decomposers, so they are good. They are beneficially, breaking down stuff into soil, but they're eating my seedlings. So the collars have been working really well. I have them, in my garden, but that does not help me when I just want to sprinkle, the seed fairy seeds everywhere. They just, as soon as the little seedling pops up, they gone. Nibbled it. Ate it. So I've been holding off from planting a lot of my gap fillers in my pellet planters, and it was just frustrating me, and I was like, I need to figure this out. So I ended up getting a whole lot of coffee grinds from a cafe, and I started sprinkling those around the little seedlings, and my bean plants, which were getting ring barked, the slaters were just like eating the outside of them, and then the plants just like either snap off or die. I put the coffee grounds on, no more, nothing, no activity at all. And I was like, oh, have I cracked this? Have I got this? So I tried it for a few more days, putting coffee grounds in more places. And you guys, it worked so well. I have now just been like removing collars. I have been adding in seedlings. I have been adding in seeds. I have been sprinkling coffee grounds, and there is no slaters in sight. And normally within an hour, the seedling has disappeared, eaten. It's been like days. So I'm so happy, because now I can get back to my seed fairy ways and be planting seeds in all the gaps. So radish seeds, turnip seeds, beetroot seeds, marigold. Where else are we at? Carrots. I sprinkle carrots in the gaps. And obviously there's like heaps of different types of carrots too. So I like to try out different types. Any spinaches, any of your leafy greens, they can go in. Pansies and violas, those are another really good edible flower, a really good beneficial plant for the cooler season. I love adding pansies and violas in all of my salads. I mean, if you're making a green salad, you've got lots of lettuces and greens, they just make it pop, and it just makes me more inspired to get into the garden and make more garden to plate meals when I have edible flowers. So those are some really good ones to pop in. Calendula is another one that I'm going to start planting as well, that has a lot of really good medicinal qualities. It's really good for skincare. So I want to get a whole bunch of that going so I can start making some more, I guess, alternative products from the garden, because I'm making a lot of food from the garden, but I want to make a lot more, maybe cleaning products and soaps and shampoos and all of those sort of things from the garden. So the calendula will be really good for that. Onions. So there's heaps of types of onions. So you've got your, green onions or your spring onions. You've got your normal onions, your red onions, your shallots, all the onions. I like to direct sow, sprinkle those in the gaps because they don't grow. They don't take up a lot of space. So a spring onion, if you can think about a spring onion, it's like the size of my, finger. It doesn't take up much space. So I just sprinkle those all in amongst everything. Same with garlic. Garlic is not going to take up much space as well. So I've been popping garlic in between everything. And if you want to know more on garlic, we did do an episode on that with Gary and Julie. So make sure you check that out. Now is a great time to be planting garlic. So I've been popping that in randomly because Jules said I could. So I'm doing it. Bok choy, tatsoi are some really good Asian greens. Bok choy is amazing in stir fries and soups and curries, all the things. And you can harvest those and get multiple crops. So if you are growing bok choy or any Asian greens, you can just cut them off at the base, use them, and they'll regrow multiple times to give you more and more food. So you don't even necessarily need to do succession planting because you can get multiple harvests from them, which is amazing. So those are some others. Tatsoi is like a really flat Asian green. So it's a really low-lying one. So if you have any spaces like that that you want to use up, then tatsoi, it's beautiful. It's such a artistic green. It's very symmetrical, and it has this like circular pattern, which I really love. So those are some of the seeds and seedlings that I'm planting at the moment. Let me know what you're growing. I'd love to know. I've got lots of sprouting broccoli, and I don't know if I've got purple cauliflower this year. I went really hard on the purple cauliflower last year, which I loved. So I think I was mixing it up this year, and I think I may have planted more so the white cauliflower and what's the green one? It's like a cross between, I think it's a cross between a broccoli and a cauliflower. Anyway, that's the one that I planted, I think, because I just wanted to mix it up, because last year I did go all in on the purple cauliflower. So other things that are happening in the garden in May, I did mention before, feijoas are going crazy right now. You guys, I feel like I may have made a mistake here. I don't know. But I have now got 4 feijoa trees. And one feijoa tree this year, I mean, it's taken 6 years. It was grown, like it was a seedling variety, so it was a no-name variety. And I always suggest getting a named variety. But it has produced so much feijoas. One tree, I'm getting like baskets and baskets full every day. And I feel like that's a lot of feijoas. And that's only one tree. And now I have 4 trees. So I feel like I'm going to have trailer loads of feijoas. So I'm testing out heaps of recipes. I'm making as much as I can. I'm going to preserve as much as I can. I'm giving heaps away. I know a lot of Kiwis, so that makes it easy because Kiwis love our feijoas. But yeah, I am questioning, and I think this is just because it just takes so long for you to get these like really abundant harvests. And once you do, you realize just how abundant and amazing these trees are. And you're like, okay, I really did get a little bit overexcited. So I'm feeling that way, but that's okay. I really wanted to grow those varieties, so I'm happy with that. And there's so many things that I can make with it. But yeah, I am going to be inundated with feijoas. But once my feijoas are finished, I'm making sure I'm picking them up every day. Don't leave any of your fruit to sort of rot under the tree if you can, because that is going to attract lots of pests and fruit flies, and you'll run into a lot of trouble with that. So always try and harvest everything off the ground. And feijoas are something that they fall to the ground when they're ripe. So that every day I'm going out there picking up all of these feijoas. Once I finish that harvest, which probably, they come in thick and fast, they're probably going to be finished in the next week or two. Once my feijoa is finished, that's when I'm going to start pruning the feijoa trees. So I like to prune my feijoa trees 20 to 30%, because now they're at the full size. Well, they're not full size. I mean, these things can grow into massive trees, but now they're at the size that I want them to be. I can start pruning them back. So I find if I prune my trees back 20 to 30%, they grow 20 to 30% again for the next year. So they end up being like relatively the same size if I keep and maintain that pruning. So once all the fruit is finished, I can prune them back 20 to 30%, and then they'll regrow that 20 to 30%, and we'll be back in the spring flowering, getting ready for another round. I'm pruning my mulberry. I've been doing that in stages because I have been taking cuttings from it, so I didn't want to be overwhelmed with too much mulberry. But again, this is depending on how you want to keep the size. I like to keep my fruit trees, where I can reach the fruit, because I am in an urban environment. Fruit trees that are like way above my height, I'm just not really going to be getting that fruit. It's probably going to end up at the neighbors, other critters will find it. It's just, I want to try and keep them as low as reachable as possible. And also the mulberry just whips. It's very bendy and it just smacks all the other trees around. So I'm going to be pruning my mulberry back quite a bit and doing a lot of mulberry cuttings. Another thing to keep an eye on, especially in the next few months, is the gall wasp on your citrus. So that is what is they look like lumps on the stems of your citrus trees, and that's where a wasp has laid eggs inside. So you can tell that the wasp hasn't disappeared because it doesn't have any holes. So once the holes start appearing in the lumps, you know that the wasps have vacated, and they normally do that towards the end of winter. So we want to make sure we're checking before the end of winter and cutting those off, and that's something that you want to try and get rid of in terms of putting it in a bag, putting that bag in the sun, or disposing of it. Don't put it in your compost, because if you do, it's just going to, the wasps will just get out, and they'll just end up infecting all your neighborhood trees. If your neighbors don't look after them, you're going to end up getting them back. And it's just this, spiral effect of bad gall wasp infections in your local area. So it's a really, really good thing to keep on top of. Take a look and see if you've got any lumps. They've quite obviously lumps on your citrus trees and on the stems. But that's something I'll be looking out for in the next month or two. I need to sort out my potting station, because now that I've planted out most of my seedlings, my potting station kind of looks a little bit of a mess. There's empty pots. There's pots with soil that nothing grew out of. Just a bit of a mess. So it's a good time to get the potting station cleaned up, because I'm not going to be really planting a lot more seeds in pots at this stage. At this stage, most of my seed planting is going direct into the garden. So I can clean that up, get that, ready for spring. Remove any of my summer plants. Most of my stuff's gone. other than the bottle gourds, which I don't really know what to do at this point because they are not stopping. I thought I'd be removing them by now. Nah, they are still fruiting, so we'll just have to play that by ear and see how they go. But those are something that I thought I would be removing, which I'm not really. But that's pretty much it for what's happening in May. Mulching, I need to make sure that my gardens are mulched now that especially I've got most of my, larger season and stuff like that. So let me know if you've got any questions. There's a few in here, so I'm going to go through and answer them too. I love seeing, what you're growing in the garden as well, because we do not only live in different areas, but we have different, cultural backgrounds. We have different preferences. So, what I'm growing is not necessarily right or perfect for everyone. It's just what I like growing. And the same with you as well. So what have we got? Caterpillars galore. Make sure you pick off those caterpillars. Manually picking them off is a really good one. How are the seedlings from episode 1 going? Oh my gosh, I was meant to show you. They are growing well. They're actually outside. I took them outside to get some sun and some rain. And so I've got lettuces, parsley, I think even some pansies in there. So I need to bring those back inside to show you. I just keep forgetting. Next episode, I will show you. It's quite slow progress. It's not like I'm really going to be eating much of them, but they are there. They're growing. So I did take them outside and then I completely forgot about it. So I need to remember next episode to show you what's growing in the pot from episode 1. What else have we got? Amy's planted some parsnip and carrot seeds in New Zealand, and it's raining. I know, poor New Zealand, you really have had quite a lot of rain. Insane amounts of rain. And coming into the wet season as well. So I really, really feel for you guys in terms of your veggie gardens, but don't give up, keep planting, outplant the rain. What else have we got here? Craig has a bird bath and can't wait to get a pond. Does anyone have duckweed in their bird bath? I am so excited for the pond, you guys, and all the pond plants. And I feel like it opens up another style of gardening as well. There's another aspect to it. There's so much more to learn. It's, learn about pond plants. What else have we got? Oh my gosh, so many bird baths, you guys. It's amazing to see all the little birds at the moment. I really cannot wait to get a bird bath or get some sort of... I actually want to get a bird bath as well as a pond because I have so many little birds, and the little birds are what are, doing a lot of my pest management, and also they are what pollinating my feijoas. So in spring when I get my feijoa flowers, there's lots of little birds darting around, and those are what are also pollinating my feijoa plants, and I want to encourage that where I can. So so many good things for having little birds in the garden, and they're so fun to watch. They've just been darting around my compost bins because there's some little bugs around the compost bins. And so there's little birds darting in and out around that as well. Again, lots of people trying to say they haven't had any success getting society garlic. But yeah, definitely check out the cottage part of the nursery rather than the edible part going on here. And Julie, your favorite coriander is a perfect seed to plant now too. So yes, if you do like coriander, by all means plant as much of that as you want. It won't be going in my garden, that's for sure. I don't like eating potpourri. Thanks, Jules. Does the coffee grounds alter the taste of the veggies? I don't know, not that I'm aware of. I mean, people do get quite concerned about the pH level of the coffee grounds, but as long as it's used and it's being passed through water, so when you make coffee at the cafe, they grind the coffee and then it gets passed through water. So it does tend to end up being a little bit more pH neutral. It's not too acidic. It has heaps of nitrogen to add to the soil and other trace minerals as well. So it's going to help feed your soil and keep the slugs, or keep the snails and the slaters, those are the two that I've found, away from my garden. So it also is really good to add into your compost. So if you just want to add it straight into the compost, you can do that as well. Off 5 Acre Farms, scoop out the feed jar flesh and freeze it for a year's supply. Ooh. Yes, that is what I'm doing. I have actually a whole, no, can't really see. I have a whole, well, I have so many feed jars right now, but I'm going to scoop them out. I made a smoothie this morning with feed jars, banana, oats, chia seeds, and cinnamon, and it was delicious. So I think if I can freeze a whole bunch, I'll be able to have smoothies, juices. I would love to just have fresh juice. Feed jar mojitos. Now we're talking. Oh, yep. Jules is planting carrot seeds, lettuce, broccoli, peas, and beans. And if you do need any seeds and you are in Perth, then make sure you see Julie at Down to Earth. Honestly, that's where I get most of all of my seeds from, and she is the queen of growing seed babies. So if you are running short on time and you're on Perth and you need some seedlings, then definitely check her out. She goes to most of the markets, especially around the south of Perth, and we love healthy seedlings. Maybe the feed jars will fruit at different times to extend your harvest. Yes, Caitlin, that is also something that I'm really hoping for. I have 4 feed jar trees, but I have 5 different varieties because one of them has 2 different varieties grafted on it. So it'll be really interesting to see. And also the different varieties have different qualities. So some will be larger than others. Some will have thicker skin. You know, there's going to be some subtle differences that I really wanted to see as well. So it'll be interesting. My white mulberry has gone dormant. Is that usual? Then yes, definitely. Mulberries go to sleep over winter in the cooler season. They'll lose their leaves. So don't be alarmed if your, mulberry trees or any of your stone fruit are losing their leaves around now and starting to look sad. Or pomegranates are another one that start to look really sad around autumn. They're just going into dormancy before spring. Ecocentric homestead, the gall wasps also infect the wild roses. So definitely be checking those out, your roses and your citrus. I don't know if they affect other things. Definitely let me know. But those are the ones that I've known. And I'm going to look for arrowhead, not arrowroot, for my pond. It produces edible tubers. Oh, that's one I haven't heard of, arrowhead. I have been researching a little bit of pond plants. Lots of people have suggested like water chestnuts and is it kangkong? I don't know if that's how you say it, but I've seen that as well. So there's a few. Also, like I really want a purple lotus flower. I don't know why. When is the best time to take cuttings of mulberry? Should I wait? I'm taking mine now. You can wait until it has gone into dormancy if you like in winter, but I've had heaps of success. I've got a whole bucket of mulberry cuttings from a few weeks ago, and they're all starting to shoot now. Actually, I have some right here that I'll show you as well. So you can just cut your mulberry and pop it in soil, but I do like to pop mine in water first, just to give it a little bit of a head start. And, these were just sticks. They've all got new shoots on them now. They don't so much have roots. They will get roots, but I can pop those in the ground now. They'll be fine. So, yeah, I like to do mine now. It's seems to work really well for me. You just really want a time when they're not focusing on other things. So if you take mulberry cuttings too close to when they've last fruited, you'll take the cuttings, pop them in water, and you'll notice that the cuttings will start to get little fruit on them because the plant is still in fruit mode. And we don't want that. We want them to put all their energy into roots. So, yeah, late autumn, winter is a really good time to be doing your mulberry cuttings. Well, I think that's about it from me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you do have any feedback or questions, definitely let me know, because that is something that I'm going to be doing lots more content on in the future, because I have a lot of feedjoy trees. But if you are feeling a little bit uninspired, or you feel like you're behind in planting in the garden, please just get something in the ground. Get some seeds, any of the things that we've discussed today, anything, really, anything. It's going to have more chance at growing in the soil than it is going to have in the seed packet. And there's no guarantee that, summer or spring is going to happen when we think it's going to happen. It could be delayed, it could be late. You could plant your seeds in an area and they thrive all through summer. So there's just no rules or guarantees on things. So the best way to find out is to give it a go, get some seeds in the soil, and happy gardening for the rest of the week. And I'll see you guys back here for another episode next week.